a descendant of the great T. Pickens Gates, who founded Global Ties Alabama. I'm chair of the board this year. I've been a journalist most of my life, started at CNN, worked at Time Magazine, Reuters. I run Gross Out Camp right now, started a nonprofit about 14 years ago, and I left a bunch of kids in the rain over at Vulcan Park to enjoy science camp today. And I have entertained many, many guests in this home you see behind me and had a wonderful time doing it. And I'd love to tell y'all more about it, but I'll let the next person introduce themselves.
Well, this is Cheryl Lang, Montgomery, Alabama, and I am the director of the Violence Against Women and Men program at Alabama State University. And I'm also an ambassador for Maxwell Air Force Base, the international officers that are here each year from all over the world. So being a part of Global Ties just fits right in with what I do.
Oh, wonderful.
I'm Paula Haddix, and during the day, I work with Ronald Blue Trust as a client service associate, and we are a financial planning and investment management firm. And when I'm not at work, I'm doing music or doing Y workouts. And my love, or our love, my husband Pete too, with internationals became evident when we had an opportunity to do some volunteering with Maxwell. And then further, because Pete is this professor at AUM, we came to know about Global Ties. So been involved since about 2014.
Wonderful.
Hey, I'm Al Allenbeck from Montgomery, retired Air Force officer, and I've had the great fortune to live around the world, experience a lot of cultures, and I like bringing that to Global Ties.
Wonderful. Next. Hello, hello.
Who's next to you?
I don't know who's next.
You're next.
Okay. Hi, I'm Steve Niemeyer. Here's my wife, Yvette.
Hi.
And we've just moved here last year from Austin. And in Austin, I was the president of Global Austin, and my dad was a former president. And since I've been here, I've hosted a delegation from Kazakhstan that came to learn about government and budgeting and things. So that was fun, but that was a good meeting. And so in any case, we're just getting involved here, and we're happy to be here.
It's wonderful. Well, thank you. It really is a terrific thing to do. I think I've been involved, well, I guess about the last 15 years or so. And I've had all kinds, I don't know about y'all, but I've had all kinds of folks in my house. I've had freedom fighters, I've had ambassadors, I've had leaders, I've had all the Holocaust museum directors. Guy from Auschwitz was a jolly fella. You wouldn't think so, but he was. It's just been, to me, an exciting experience to having people come to my home, and my friends love it, which is really a wonderful thing too, that they're able to enjoy having people come and meet different people from all over the world, and enjoy cooking for them and letting them come in and enjoy home hospitality has been one of the favorite things I've done, and I've certainly made friends around the world. I feel like I could probably go anywhere and find somebody I know and enjoy an experience there by sharing their home as well. How about y'all?
This is Cheryl, and I actually am similar to that. My next door neighbors are from Sri Lanka, and they have been associates with Maxwell Air Force Base. They have a business where they house probably about 30 plus internationals, and that's how I started meeting them and spending time and hiking and doing all these things with them until I became an ambassador. And so I've had in my home some of that group, as well as through Global Ties, individuals from all around, Asia and Africa and different areas. And I've only traveled a little bit abroad, so I feel like it would, I guess, broaden my exposure to cultures by bringing them into the home. And I've even had, through Leadership Montgomery, which I was a part of here in Montgomery, we would bring in internationals, and I'd allow them to come in and they prepare their dinners and their meals and different things. So just the various ways I've interacted with different people that have come to Montgomery and made us global just by being in our city.
You know, one person we didn't introduce ourselves is Jackie Scheid here, our wonderful CEO and Executive Director of Global Time.
Thank you, Verna. And I'd like to thank everybody for being on today. As many of you know, COVID-19 has devastated many of our organizations at the nonprofit level, certainly at the business level, community level. But it's been an opportunity for us to ensure a level of resilience in the work that we do. And so in May, we converted to the Global Perspective Institutes on a virtual level. And we're just so thankful that it gives us an opportunity to stay engaged with our diplomatic corps members. It also allows us to highlight those of you who are the stars in our diplomatic corps of volunteers. And because we do our work statewide, we've had to have part 1, 2, and 3 featuring our volunteers who host international visitors. I'm also honored today, Verna, and I think you see their photos. I've been on board almost 10 years, and Frank Broyles was a member of our board, and he's a past president. And I see and hear that he's back in Huntsville area. I heard him on a recent conference call. And of course, John Hamilton is past president of our board. So this could actually be with the your introduction and with Steve's introduction, it could be a gathering of presidents. But since we're inclusive, we'll make sure that it's presidents and all members of the Diplomatic Corps volunteers. So thanks to all of you for being with us. And I appreciate Verna for moderating this panel. I'll turn it back to Verna.
Thank you. Well, some of our guests on here, I'd love to hear some of your stories about various folks you've entertained. I know I've got my favorite one of all is one time we were asked to do a big delegation of, I think it was about 35 in my neighborhood got together and had an alley party. And everybody brought home cooked food and the dogs and the kids and everything else. And we had I understand that's still talked about around the world, all these people from different diplomatic places that came and one person told me, and this is one thing I think we should remember when we entertain, he said, this is the first time I've seen it. And so, you know, it's one of those moments like that. They're so much fun. I know some of y'all have got some other stories you can share.
Hey, this is Alan Montgomery. I mean, I'll jump in. If you read the newsletter, you know we hosted an International Woman of Courage, Amina Kolani from Syria. It was really a tremendous experience. But we've had the opportunity the last couple of years to host people from South America and also from Europe. I think the South American one was very interesting. We actually hosted 14 people, and there were actually 4 more in the entire delegation. They showed up at our driveway at the time that we were supposed to let go of our folks, and then everyone came into the house, and we just ended up having a party going a lot longer. But what was very interesting about that one was that there was very little English spoken with the delegates. We had 3 very good interpreters, and between all of us, we were able to communicate some pretty significant ideas, learn about what was going on in South America. I think if you've watched the news at all, you know that South America, several countries have all kinds of different governance issues. They've got COVID-19 issues. I think that listening firsthand to these people and working through the language challenges, maybe it makes you listen a little better. I don't know, but we certainly enjoyed that visit with all those folks from South.
One of our good experiences was involving a group of Europeans who came that were specialists in law enforcement. And they had such a great interest in what was going on in the small cities that they visited. They went to Prattville and some of and Millbrook and spoke with subject matter experts, if you would, in those cities. And it was just a real great discussion. And then several visits later, a second group of the same but a little different law enforcement group came, and some of the people worked with the first group. So it was awesome to experience the whole, not quite a repeat, but it's like having one set of family come and then another set of family come, and they kind of all knew each other. And that was just that's just one of many stories, but it was just a real rich time.
Wow.
And lots of exchange there.
I have one to share. I'm sorry. Who's next?
Go ahead.
My wife and I, Rhonda and Frank Broyles, we hosted a group for a Saturday morning brunch, not an overnight, from North Africa. And it was representing seven different countries from North Africa. And the goal was to have conversation and tea and other things, but we started talking about the power of music cross-culturally. And my wife plays the piano, so she started playing the piano per request. She also plays the bassoon. She started playing that. And then somebody else had an instrument with them somehow, or maybe they borrowed one of ours. And we had a little concert almost, fascinating. And then we talked about how music transforms culture and crosses culture. And it entered into a very deep discussion about cross-cultural understanding that was fascinating. It took about an hour and a half, and I'll never forget that.
Okay, this is Cheryl, and I would like to share about my most recent group that was here. And they actually were part of government representatives, and they wanted to see how elections were handled in our country. And so they wanted to see it from start to finish, from campaigning to the election to the victory celebrations and that kind of thing. So I actually had about 8 individuals and for dinner that evening, but also had the probate judge who handled the elections here in Montgomery to come to my home with 2 of his assistants. So they had direct dialogue and questions and that kind of thing. And then the next day they were able to go to the polls and watch the election. And then that evening, one of the individuals hosted them at their watch party. So I was with them from meeting them, then having them here and interacting with the probate and the election officials, and then to observe the voting, and then that night for 2 victory celebrations. So we were busy that evening, and that was very, very interesting. And one of the gentlemen was running for president of his country.
Mm.
How about anybody else got a good story? Philip, maybe?
My name is Philip Perry. I am in Montgomery, Alabama. I am a first grade teacher at Southland Elementary. I was invited by Miss Paula Haddix and Pete. They have told me we have dinner from time to time, and they share their stories about people that they have hosted from different countries. And this really sounded interesting, and she invited me today. And so I'm just really here to observe and listen and all of this wealth of information. I do travel. I have been to Tokyo. I've been to Paris. I have traveled to Costa Rica, and last year I went to the Holy Land toward Israel, and really was to go to Spain this year, but that was because of COVID at home. But I'm just really excited about what I'm hearing, and that's it. Oh, I music. I sing, record, Christian music, all of those good things.
How about Steve? Y'all have some good stories. I'm sure you do.
Let's see.
What do you want?
Well, I'll tell you an interesting one. We went to a dinner last year, or maybe, I guess the year before, in Austin with some friends of ours, and they hosted 3 Russian visitors, and they were learning about the arts. And one, I don't know what she did. She was some kind, they were all in their, I guess,
Theater.
yeah, they were theater, but they were in their early 30s, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I like to do nowadays with visitors is I ask them for their street address, and I pull out my phone and I find their house on Google Maps, and they're kind of fascinated by that. They can just like, there it is. Here's where you live, you know, and how far is it to work? But what really impressed them was that I asked the host, and she is now the president of Global Austin. I said, hey, doesn't Matthew McConaughey live around here? And they just got so excited. Like, oh, Matthew McConaughey. They were really excited.
I get excited about that too.
Yeah. And you know, and because Scott said, yeah, I see his wife at Whole Foods all the time. So they were just like, let's go out and try to find him right now.
Go jogging.
American culture reaches far and wide. So I don't know.
One of the funniest stories about a group of Russians was Drew Reynolds had a group of Siberians. We had one of our dustings of snow and everything shut down, and he was trying to explain to them while they couldn't go to their meetings. They're going, snow? What snow? This is not snow. That was really funny. How about you, John? We haven't heard from you. I know you've hosted a lot of folks. John Hamilton, I want to unmute you.
He might be gone.
There you go.
Oh.
Maybe that's having a little trouble. How about you, Wanda Gale? We'd love to hear from you.
Verna, thanks, but since I'm on the panel next week, I'm going to hold off.
Saving those good stories for everybody. Well, I've entertained all kinds of folks. One I really remember was a freedom fighter from Burma. And he had the most beautiful, angelic face I think I've ever seen in my life, a young man. And when he pulled his, hands up, his sleeves, when he would move, you could see where the scars, from where he'd been shackled and handcuffed. And I need to try to contact him because you just knew he would do it again. He's somebody that would probably likely be killed, but didn't care. And it's just such a lovely, beautiful young man. And you hate to think of the fact that he had to go to a place where he didn't have freedoms that he was fighting for, but he was willing to do whatever it took to fight for it. And he'd been tortured and other things for what he believed in. And these are some of the guests that are really exciting to have here to learn about how we in Alabama and especially Birmingham, go through the Civil Rights Museum and some of the places that you can go, and down in Montgomery as well, and see how we dealt with issues, not perfectly, but a way to hopefully try to help them find some freedom.
I'm thinking, when they come.
Next? Shall I pick on somebody again?
Can you hear me? Verna, can you hear me? This is Cheryl. Verna?
Yes, I can hear you. Come on. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I was thinking about what you mentioned about him being shackled and the issues that they have back in their areas. I know we probably don't get that involved, but how or what can we do as an organization, maybe follow or track or to see how their experience here impacted or made a difference when they got back, or how are their lives changed, or things that we could maybe support or tie into? I don't know if that's taking us off the grid of what we're for, but just to have them here and they leave, and maybe might be some things that we could do as an organization. I don't know, just thinking.
Yeah, Cheryl, thank you so much for that question. And I'll also ask Annette, who's our program consultant, to help on this response. As an organization, we are committed to continuing the relationships that begin with the visit to the United States. So typically, if you have a delegation, they are visiting 3 cities in addition to Washington, D.C. Many of these individuals go back and they're so excited about the experience that they either lead the effort to establish an alumni association in their country, or there's an existing one that they might get involved with. There's also an evaluation form. It used to take a long time for us to get feedback from the delegation, but now before they even leave the US, we will receive evaluation response that they have completed to give us a sense of what the experience was. And I'll also ask each of you if you would talk about some of the challenges that you faced in hosting. But we don't want anyone to think that this is a a merry-go-round, that everybody has an exceptional experience. There are those who are challenged by the experience. And we have sent, I think, 3 outreach letters or emails to many of our visitors asking them what they're doing now, what are the challenges, what are the successes that they've had. So we want to continue the engagement with some of our delegations where it's a special program. We actually have had reverse exchanges. So for example, the delegation members have the opportunity to invite individuals who they've met. Typically it's somebody who has served as a mentor while they were here. They were doing some shadowing of the person at work. And then they ask them to come to their country and work on a project with them. I've worked with one of our young leaders of the Americas from Guyana, and for 3 years, we hosted a women's business conference. We've had other reverse exchanges in Greece, Peru, Pakistan, and Belize. And so many of our diplomatic corps members are quite actively involved in the post relationship. And we're thankful for the continued dialogue that we have with them.
That's very helpful.
What I have
Also-
found with, go ahead. Somebody.
Okay, I also wanted to mention that in regard to some of our visitors that come from countries where literally they are putting their life in danger to participate in a program where they are learning about democracy. And sometimes we're given information ahead of time that certainly we are asked as an organization to limit releasing information about their name, or maybe sometimes even the country they come from. I know I've thought in years about someone we had years ago who came from Burma, or his home was in Burma. He had a visa to go to a country that was near him, and we could not print his name. We could not, in essence, share anything about him. And often I wondered about him when he went back to his country. Did he live when he returned after his experience here? But, and we've had other visitors too that truly we want to hear from them, and often we do. Sometimes it's from a professional resource, but other times it's someone such as yourself who has hosted them in their home, established a relationship that continues past the time that they return to their country.
And one thing I find, some people I ask if they want to volunteer to do this. And it doesn't matter how you entertain. It matters that you entertain them in their home. Because, if I was in Burma or somewhere, I'd want to see somebody's house and see how they live. And I always tell people that Southern hospitality is not known for its fanciness, but for its hominess.
I think it's just the warmth and welcome that they receive, that they feel like they're welcome when they walk through your doors and put their feet under your table. That's what's important.
I have two quick stories.
The only problem, go ahead. You got a quick question? Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Who's up? Me?
Yeah.
You want
You
me
want
to
to say
share
something?
now? Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this has to do with challenging of hosting that Jackie brought up. It's not home hospitality. We had a group of leaders that were, I think, all Muslim. The majority were, and we had a panel. Wanda Gale may have been on it. I'm pretty sure Carol Landry was, where I assembled religious leaders to have dialogue, and two of them were women pastors, and this group was not comfortable with that. Very interesting. We talked about it very openly, that, you know, I gathered ministers representing different traditions. One person, I don't think they left the room, but they were quite uncomfortable being with women religious leaders. But we talked about it.
Mm.
But that night, we went to the chamber for a gathering. Jackie, I think you were a part of this, where wine was served by the chamber. And we had to deal with that because even being in the room was difficult. And I forget, we resolved that somehow. So those were two examples. Is that right, Jackie? Something like that.
Yeah, I've heard too, house pets are a problem for a certain, like dogs.
Oh.
I remember one time I had a group of Muslims at Christmas time, and somebody asked me, "Were you going to take down your Christmas tree?" I said, "No. If I was in a Muslim country during a religious holiday, I want to see how they decorated." And ended up, and I didn't put my cat up either. And every one of them had their picture taken in front of my Christmas tree, holding the cat.
So sometimes
I know
it
dogs have
flows,
issues.
doesn't
I'm sorry, what?
It's funny.
I escorted that same group Frank is talking about, of Muslim religious leaders, and we went to visit the chaplains, and we went to Crestwood, and sure enough, the chaplain was female. And I thought, and the first question they asked was, if you have Muslim patients here, how does that work? And she said, well, if they want a Quran, I give them a Quran. If they want me to pray over them, I pray over them. I thought they did fairly well.
Mm-hmm.
I knew they were comfortable with what she was saying, but I thought they did very well in being respectful of what she was saying and not attacking her.
Sometimes when when the guests will come for dinner, we've used as an icebreaker question around the table for them to share about their experiences, perhaps maybe just that day, or what's been a highlight to them. And sometimes that can be a Pandora's box, and sometimes it's education. It's not necessarily meant to get a pat on the back or a flattery of what they've experienced, but just to wholeheartedly let them know that we're interested. And one group that we had, and this may have been one of the European groups that were in law enforcement, but nevertheless, the people, it doesn't matter, but they had gone to a victory celebration of a political situation here in Montgomery. Couldn't tell you who it was at this time, probably better not to even remember. But one of the parties was a Muslim, and someone in the group at this celebration made a generalization about people of the Muslim faith that was quite offensive. And the person was still inflamed and frustrated that had happened to them. And I like to think that sometimes when we are, as the host, we have a wonderful opportunity to, I wouldn't do anything to smooth that over, but to just be another listening ear and just say, well, you experienced that, but please know that not everyone in the United States reacts that way or has that same feeling. But that's perhaps a tension that can happen around a table when you truly are genuine about being wondering if they've had a good time or if it's been meaningful, and you don't know what's going to be said, but you have one opportunity to just take maybe what was tough and turn it into something tender.
Yeah. Sometimes we have to end up explaining ourselves, I think, as well as Southerners. Has anybody else experienced that?
I think that I might mention in regard to that particular program that Paula made mention of just now. With that group, I think, well, I know that the person that made that comment, they were easily offended, but at the same time, they took, they went to another city and actually offended the mayor. And so, but I think your point is very good, that we can only deal with the time that we have them, and hopefully change their opinion, one person at a time. The party that they went to was an open party that they went willingly, you know, but I do remember that they had a great time at your home.
Oh.
You know, speaking of the recent Kazakhstan here, when I met them with them in the office up in Huntsville. They told me that, and I heard this from more than one visitor, and I don't know how we do this, but they said that in Washington, they're saying, you're going to Alabama, that's a horrible place. You'll have a terrible time there. And then people are terrible there. And the guy said, this is great. We're having a wonderful time. We've had home hospitality and all kinds of great stuff. So I think but I wish Washington would not.
That's true.
Yeah, not help us. They're not helping us. And that's not really a good thing to say. You know, they've chosen to come to Alabama, or their program comes to Alabama, and I think we should live or die on our own as people get here and get to know us.
And that's reflected over and over in reports that we receive when a program is concluded. I would say the vast majority of time, they have wonderful experiences in the home they are hosted in while they're here.
And I might address just even the meal planning. We keep a notebook of what we've served for various meals, and that's just been a real help to us. If something was it was a bust, or something, particularly if there are specific dietary restrictions, perhaps because of faith more so than physical condition. And I think the thought for us to do that is minute in compared to that the effort that means to the guests, that we've considered. If someone is a non, a full vegetarian, or just they don't eat a particular meat, and that's just time and again we've really seen the value of that.
Chicken's a beautiful thing. I'm happy to share with all of y'all my chicken with cranberry sauce. I use cranberry sauce to make chicken salad, and very few of them have ever had cranberry, so it's a winner. It's a good one every time. But yes, I've entertained. I always have a lot of vegetables. I generally do the same thing. I applaud you, Paula, for I have the standard menu I kind of have adopted, but I cook every time. But I think they really enjoy the people who want to meet with them, because the friends who are coming voluntarily. They're not involved with their work or anything else. They just want to see and meet new people and meet these people. I think that's the exciting part for them, is to do that. Has that been y'all's experience?
Yes, I actually invited students to engage with the first group that I had, because they were social issues from their country. And so I brought our international students who deal with domestic violence, sexual assault, and those issues on campus. They're like peer representatives. And so in bringing them to interact with the group, that and plus the group was a younger group. I'm 67, so I'm like their host, but I bring in people that are different ages so they can dialogue. And I also brought some of the officers from the base, so they can mix and mingle and maybe find the kind of rapport or conversations with people that they can relate to. And of course, now that's with that group, most of them spoke English, but the last group that would not have worked because most of them did not speak English. So, but with them being able to communicate with individuals on a more conversational level with them one-on-one, that worked out really well with the students. And the young people seem to, ideas and opinions and interest, and they're inquisitive. So that worked out really well with my group. Now the food, I'm not the chef, but it looks like even when they told me they didn't eat meat, I was surprised the ones that didn't eat meat ate the meat. They ate everything. They seemed to enjoy it. And I shocked myself because I'm not a cook whatsoever. And so they ate it. Either they didn't know it was meat, but they enjoyed the food that I prepared. And when people eat my food, it's real plus.
I thought it was amusing. One time I had a group, and I mentioned the alley party, and everybody bought potluck. And they thought they'd gone to heaven because, tasting real American food, just fresh from people's kitchens, people were just making these huge plates and going around eating. I just thought it was the greatest thing. And really, they're here to experience what we eat and that sort of stuff. I don't want to I'm not going to make Chinese food for somebody's Chinese because I know.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Well, the ability to host groups for meals, large groups, and then be able to welcome others to come in. We often run into the challenge of space. Where can we do that in large homes? And I have checked with my wife about this, by the way, but we're buying a condo here soon, we hope. And if we get it, we have this huge great room. Are you listening, Jackie? We've got this real big great room that could hold probably 30, 35 people. And we've talked about maybe hosting. Oh, am I not on?
Yeah, you're here.
Oh, okay, good. We've talked about, could we host sometime this summer or fall when the conditions come about, a group coming over, and we could have, I think, 25 to 30 people, and of course, we may have to social distance. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. But having large spaces in homes is often a good thing. So I just want to offer that when the time comes right.
Thank you.
Bring up a good point.
Thank you.
What is the future outlook into the fall due to the coronavirus?
So technically, the Department of State prefers giving us a month-to-month update, but right now they've told us that through the end of September, we will not be hosting face-to-face exchanges or person-to-person exchanges. My personal belief, and our team has talked about it, I've talked about it with other CBM leaders around the country, we don't see the Department of State resuming the person-to-person through the end of 2020. It probably will become a regular activity again in 2021. Let's remember that even if we had a delegation that was scheduled to come here, everyone isn't as open as you, ladies and gentlemen, and I might not even feel comfortable asking you to host a group in your home at this time. We've also heard from some of our colleagues that our international visitors are not interested in coming to the US right now because of the press related to COVID-19. They care about their health as well. So right now, I don't think we will see the person-to-person exchange. We are doing our first virtual exchange on this Friday. We have a delegation of about a dozen African law professionals who will be introduced to EJI in Montgomery. You would not believe the work that's going into that, because the Department of State and our program agency partner, it's a first for them. So it's not just us and EJI. And so have our second rehearsal tomorrow.
Oh my gosh.
It's amazing. But we're delighted. This is a group, this is a delegation that was already in the United States when the announcement that the travel would have to take place, and they had to cut their trip to the US short. So although Annette had put together a full program for them, they were not able to experience Alabama. And this is a way to make up for that. And we're delighted because we think EJI is not only an exceptional, Equal Justice Initiative is not only an exceptional resource, but the timing of the issues that they will discuss and what is going on in our country right now is extremely relevant.
And I thought that it was significant that EJI is really only one of 3 resources that they will include in their program, in their national program.
Wow, that's great.
That's great. Well, one thing I wanted to talk about, it came up earlier, but I'd like to address a little bit more with Olga on the line. We talked about the speaking English or not speaking English, the issues of translation sometimes. Is that, can that be a barrier, or how do you deal with that?
Excuse me, I did not hear the question. I was interrupted.
Oh, I'm sorry. It is, you also translate for us. We talked about guests sometimes and a challenge when we have guests who don't speak English. Can you tell a little bit about that since you've experienced it?
I would say that always when we have English and non-English speaking visitors, we always have interpreters. And so whenever I would have someone who would not be able to interpret, sometimes it's a thing. If the person does not speak any English, then the interaction at home becomes a little bit of a problem. And people are just looking at the gestures and trying to understand what's going on rather than just communicating openly. In all the situations, I always prefer to give my contact in case if people cannot understand each other, so they can call the third person and try to communicate between them. I love to see my colleagues, interpreters, who interpret not just the words, but try to interpret the meaning of the words. And I would share one of my experiences with one of the delegations we had from Russia. It was a delegation of indigenous people of Russia who came to Alabama to meet the civil rights leaders. And one of the meetings was very emotional. The content of the meeting was very emotional for both sides. And for me as an interpreter, it was very important to keep this emotion in the communication, and just because of, you know, the language, not to interrupt the emotional flow. And the meeting ended up when everyone was staying in the circles and holding their hands, and everyone was crying, singing one of the songs together. And for me as an interpreter, it's a very emotional as well, because I was able for the whole meeting to keep this level of emotional involvement of every participant from the American side and from the side where delegation came from. There are difficulties so the language would be the first difficulty for people, but the second one would be for people who are experiencing United States for the first times, and a lot of things, they are very unknown for them, and they do have the interpretation on their own if they do not have someone who is familiar with their culture to help them understand things. One of the examples would be why Americans don't eat soup for lunch in their country. In one of the countries, for example, I had a delegation, they're eating soup every single day. So, and frustration is big, saying, okay, can I find a soup somewhere? I cannot eat so much bread. And then you explain the culture and where it's coming from. And there are a lot of people asking why Americans smiles all the time. And so they need the explanation of that. And it's kind of a full range of all kind of questions you never anticipate and you never expect, but it's very interesting to see how people are trying to understand better our people and our country. I would like to say that I'm very fortunate to work as an interpreter for delegations of Open World Leadership Center. So I work for Alabama, for Global Ties Alabama. When we have delegation here who are speaking Russian, basically Russian or Romanian. And the rest of the time I travel to interpret for delegations to other states and other cities. So I have the possibility to see how hosts here in Alabama and how hosts in other states and coordinators and the staff, how they do organize their programs there, and always have a chance to compare and see the best and the worst parts of the program, and try to be a person who can help out in case of some problems would appear.
Oh, well, thank you, Olga. Well,
Yeah.
we're running out of time. What time? Much time do we have, Jackie? It's a few minutes, I think.
No, it's 1:45 now, unless there are some other comments. Yes.
Well, thank you, everybody. I certainly enjoyed videoing with you today. It's good to see everybody, sort of via internet videos. And thank you for all your contributions and for all you do for Global Ties to entertain people and to help them understand more about America and about us as a culture and about how we are the same and yet different. And thank you.
And hopefully one day we'll all be able to get together ourselves.
I know, that'll be wonderful.
Right.
I'd love to see all of y'all in person.
Love you guys.
Give me a hug from here from Birmingham.
Thank you so much for hosting today.
And
You're
please,
welcome. Thank you, everybody.
thank you, Carol. And please remember that Thursday is online trivia. And anyone that can join us for the trivia, this will be the 4th session. And then our national championship next week. I don't want to say that we have a champion on the screen, but you know, we might have somebody in this audience who's one of our champions. So we're just thankful for everyone's involvement, and look forward to seeing some of you on Thursday. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank
and
you,
have
everybody.
a great day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Jackie, are you still on?
Al? Yes. Yes, Al.
Yeah, I've got a conflict at 5 o'clock tonight. I'm on the board of the Southern Museum of Flight in Birmingham, and they normally hold their meetings at 6 p.m.
Yes.
This is their first Zoom meeting, and they moved it up to 5. So I'll attempt to, if that one doesn't go long, I'll jump over to yours. So,
And hopefully ours won't be more than an hour. We'll see. But thank you. I appreciate it.
This is their first, they actually haven't met this year since the COVID stuff happened.
Right. Yes.
And it's a quarterly thing. So I really like to make this. So if you don't see me, that's what I'm doing.
Okay. And I'll let Verna know. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
All right. Thank you, Jackie. Appreciate all you're doing.
Thank you. Bye-bye.